Henry, the rising star in the business world, is gentle and gentlemanly. At a drinking party, he always looks out for the little princess of the board of directors. He watched as I was pressured to drink and forced to have my stomach pumped. He advised me, Emily, just let it go. She has never suffered in her life. I was almost moved. If only Henry weren't my fiancé. On the day the project was stolen, Henry lowered his head to me. He begged me to please the ruthless young master in the circle and help him get the project back. I agreed. 3 days later, Henry personally took me to the young master, but I didn't tell him. The project wouldn't come back. Neither would I. Today's drinking party was originally unrelated to me. Henry called and insisted I come. When I arrived, I found out Helen wanted me there. As I entered the private room, she was playing a game with Henry. The game involved sharing a biscuit, eventually leaning in for a kiss. Everybody laughed. You better take responsibility for Helen, Henry, they said. All the people there were Helen's friends, only saying things she liked to hear. After some teasing, they finally noticed me standing at the door. Henry, who's this? Henry looked at me, then quickly averted his gaze. She's the neighbor's sister. I held my dress tightly, not contradicting. I'm not just a sister. I'm your fiancé. Helen pushed a glass of wine towards me, and I politely declined. Sorry, I'm allergic to alcohol. Helen questioned, Emily, do you look down on us, unwilling to drink? She interrupted, you need to redeem your father's reputation. Everyone here is influential. If you don't drink, where's your chance? Desperately, I turned to Henry for help. He knew about my alcohol allergy, but he stayed silent. Could these people really help my father? I bit the bullet, picked up the glass, and drank it all. Once I started, I became a lamb to the slaughter. They kept pouring drinks, one after another, laughing. Look at her go, she can really drink. Henry furrowed his delicate brows and glanced over. I thought he would stop them, but he didn't. The alcohol burned my stomach. The mocking laughter gradually faded as I lost consciousness. Before blacking out, all I could hear was Helen's coquettish voice. Henry, look at her, she's just faking it. I was taken to the hospital for stomach pumping. When I woke up, only Henry's assistant was by my side. The assistant sighed in relief. Thank goodness you've finally woken up. The doctor said any later, and it might have been too late. Where's Henry? I asked. He was just here, but truth be told, just a call from Helen made him leave. I wasn't surprised. As if afraid I'd be upset, the assistant explained, Emily, Henry does care for you a lot. He was by your hospital bed all night yesterday. His eyes were swollen red from worry. His concern for you is genuine. Henry's situation is actually very difficult. After all, Helen is the daughter of the chairman of the company where Henry works. In the past, I didn't understand why Henry's career advanced so quickly, but after meeting Helen, everything became clear. She was the daughter of the chairman of Henry's company. We both came from the same small town, and had been childhood friends for over 20 years. Our parents even arranged our future marriage when we were young. When tragedy struck my family 3 months ago, I went to Henry for help. I thought he would surely assist me since my family used to support his. However, reality hit me hard. When I saw him again at his house, he was lying in bed with a strange woman, Helen. Henry explained it away. I was drunk and just fell asleep. Nothing happened. I retorted, they fell asleep together in bed. How's that nothing happening? Henry casually said, we're both adults. Don't be so petty. Emily, learn from Helen. See the world more, and you won't be so naive anymore. Where was the Henry the first used to know? The friendly neighbor boy who always smiled warmly. Helen loved to bully me, and Henry allowed it to happen, almost to an extreme degree. I could endure the humiliation, or I could walk away from this relationship. Either way was fine, as long as I could save my father. While being discharged from the hospital, the doctor scolded me. Don't you know you're allergic to alcohol? Stop mistreating your body, and eat better. You're too thin and malnourished. Her words were strict. But doctor, I used to be different. I used to be healthy and pretty with long black hair. Not like now, dull and brittle like dry grass. I listened silently, without protesting, until she sighed and said, I'm a mother too. Hurting your body like this, your parents would be heartbroken if they knew. Tears welled up in my eyes. I cried all the way to Henry's doorstep, preparing to ask him a question. Can't waste alcohol, can't waste stomach pumping. Isn't it time we address my father's situation? Standing at the door of the study, I suddenly heard an argument inside. Samuel took over this project. We don't stand a chance. It was Henry's impatient voice. Then you better figure something out. Even Helen seemed fired up. I begged my father for half a day to entrust you with such an important opportunity, Henry. If you can't deliver, you'll have to make it happen. Fine, Henry compromised. Do you think I dare to snatch the project from Samuel? I wouldn't be able to handle even 10 of him. Helen fell silent. Henry, There is actually another way, she said. Tell me, he replied. Yesterday, over drinks, a friend told me something about Emily. They said she looks a lot like Samuel's crush. Samuel, I've heard that name before. The chairman hasn't stepped down yet, but Samuel, as his grandson, has flourished. However, there are many rumors about this person. In the study, Henry's voice turned cold. Helen, I warn you, don't drag Emily into our work. What's the matter? Feeling guilty? Do you know what kind of person Samuel is? You surely do. Helen was on her high horse. Strange temper, unpredictable, doesn't care if there's blood on his hands. Goes as far as causing harm to his own father. Pushing Emily towards such a madman. Are you trying to kill her? These were the rumors. Samuel disowned his own family, making his father's life particularly miserable. Helen suddenly laughed, a very joyful laugh. Henry, I haven't even said anything yet, and you're already thinking about pushing Emily to him. Talk about being in sync. Henry fell silent. He didn't even deny it. I covered my stomach, feeling a sudden chill. Should I let Emily help? It's up to you to decide. If we can't secure the deal, then you're out along with her. Helen issued the final ultimatum, her tone condescending. The next day, Henry locked himself in the study, chain-smoking non-stop. He never used to smoke. He used to be as beautiful as a pool of spring water, shimmering under the sun. Now, that water had turned murky, emitting a foul smell. In the evening, Henry knocked on my door. He sounded guilty as he explained his request, hoping I could go and appease Samuel. I wasn't surprised at all. I had heard of this name before. They say he has a terrible temper, but those were just rumors, nothing to rely on. So, are you saying I'll be safe by his side? Henry was speechless. I know you're feeling wronged, but Emily, once this is done, I'll help you save your uncle. The people we are closest to are the ones who can exploit our vulnerabilities. Henry, I just got out of the hospital today, do you remember? Sorry, I was too busy today. I couldn't pick you up in person. Is your body okay? He reached out to touch my hair, but I dodged it. Emily, are you upset? No. If you really don't want to, it's okay. I want to. What? I said I want to. So when should I go see him? I never expected to agree so easily. Henry's face suddenly turned cold, his brows furrowed. 3 days later, Henry personally drove me to the hotel. Emily, are you sure about this? Of course. I hate to see you so wronged. He had a pair of tender eyes. I used to like his eyes a lot, but now, I find them annoying. It doesn't matter about my future. It's all for my uncle, no, for Dad. He took out a bracelet and put it on my wrist. Emily, keep this on you, I'll come get you. Getting out of the car, in a corner where he couldn't see, I took off the bracelet and threw it in the trash. I had been disappointed in Henry for a long time. I could tell he was avoiding me not only because of Helen, but also probably because he was afraid my father's case would implicate him. So for these 3 months, he talked a lot, but did nothing, wasting a lot of time. Young love always loses to reality. I headed straight to the top floor of the hotel. Samuel was a strange man. He never stayed at home, only in hotels. He had booked the presidential suite on the top floor. The door was wide open, but the room was dark. Just as I was about to go in, a man was thrown out from inside. Yes, thrown out. A middle-aged man, beaten up, was thrown out of the room. He cried out, Samuel, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Get lost. With that cold voice, a fruit knife flew straight and stuck in the carpet in front of the man. It missed him by just 2 millimeters. I had no doubt that these 2 millimeters weren't a deviation, but intentional. I shuddered and looked up. The man was sitting on the sofa, his face hidden in the dark. Only his fingertips showed a bit of crimson. Samuel, my voice trembled involuntarily. I'm Emily, I said. Come here. He interrupted my introduction. The closer I got to him, the dimmer the light became, but I could still make out his superior facial features and slender legs. I was introduced by Helen and Henry. I finally managed to finish speaking. I know, Samuel replied nonchalantly. Can you kiss? No, no boyfriend before. No, but I had a playground kiss. In the past. Not anymore. When did it stop? Just now. He chuckled softly, very quietly. It felt like a feather lightly brushing against my skin, causing a ticklish sensation. Surprisingly, it was not unpleasant. Can you do it? Samuel asked again. Do what? He made a simple sound, making my cheeks blush. No, I fumbled, not continuing. Samuel had already let go of my hand. Just kidding with you. Don't worry. I'm not interested in making you do something you don't want to do. Unexpectedly, he turned out to be quite sensible. Samuel was really not going to continue. He lowered his head, ready to button up again. I suddenly reached out and hooked the buttonhole. I was just nervous, not unwilling. To prove my determination, I reached behind and unzipped his pants. A silhouette bigger than I had imagined revealed itself. Thanks to the darkness, it concealed my blushing face. Tell me, How can I be more like her? Like who? Your crush. Samuel chuckled. You're quite dedicated. I volunteered to be the stand-in, so I will fulfill my duties. So, can you tell me, what should I do to be more like her? This is fine for now. Samuel's reply was very simple. I inferred slightly that he meant for me to continue taking the initiative. Perhaps his crush is a very proactive person. I gritted my teeth, mustered up courage, and pushed him to the edge of the bed, kissing him wildly. A reading light on the bedside table illuminated Samuel's features. He could only be described as handsome in an unparalleled way. Henry used to be the school hunk, but compared to Samuel, there was no comparison. I looked at Samuel's face and couldn't help but be stunned. Why stop kissing? Seeing my silence, he rolled over, spread his legs, and pinned me beneath him. Emily, pay attention, this is how you kiss. He suddenly called my name. It sounded so nice that my mind went blank. Then, I was engulfed in a long, wet kiss. Samuel said he wanted to teach me. He was serious. He had been working out for years, his physique and stamina surpassing the average person's. Along with his magnetic voice, deliberately soft, he breathed lightly in my ear. He tempted me to the point of losing my sanity. Sometimes I scratched his back. Sometimes I grabbed his arms, as a way to resist wave after wave of rising passion. Samuel had a tattoo on his arm, which turned red when I scratched it. Another moment of losing control. Samuel sighed, quite sensitive. I was too ashamed to look at him or reply. Samuel, on the other hand, got more excited. Emily, look at me. What am I doing? He intentionally slowed down his movements, gently teasing in that torturous spot. Unable to resist, I could only speak the words he wanted to hear, but for some reason, it seemed to grow even hotter. Samuel showed me his wild side. After what felt like an eternity, I begged, Samuel, I'm so tired. I can't take it anymore. What did you call me? Samuel. Did you call me the wrong name? No, right? Flames reignited in Samuel's eyes. It sounds really good. I like it a lot. Should I call your name again? No. I forgot my place and glared at him. Samuel, however, remained unperturbed, coaxing me, Emily, just one more time. With his assurance, I lazily lay down. This time, it was more intense than before. My voice nearly broke in my throat. When it became unbearable, I moved forward unconsciously, but Samuel held me around the waist and pulled me back with force, matching it with a thrust. In an instant, it reached the zenith, my brain blanking out. I could also hear a muffled moan from Samuel behind me. He let out a satisfied sigh. I slept until the afternoon before waking up, and Samuel was there to wake me up. Opening my eyes, I sensed something subtly different. Bowing my head, I saw Samuel's short, tousled hair and the tattoo on his arm. The atmosphere was soaked with ambiguity. He was so passionate that it made me wonder who was actually trying to please whom. After the confusion, I went to take a shower. As I tiptoed, I screamed in pain. Samuel asked, is it hurting? A bit. It's my fault. Last night was also my first time. I couldn't control myself. I looked at him incredulously. What did you say? It was your first time. How could it be your first time? You're supposed to have been with many women. So experienced, right? It seems you have quite a few misunderstandings about me. Without explaining further, Samuel picked me up and sent me into the bathroom. By the time I came out after cleaning up, he had finished showering in another bathroom. Samuel got dressed in a black suit, his fingers holding a cigarette, exuding an unattainable aura. He stubbed out the cigarette as soon as he saw me coming out and immediately sat down to talk. His voice had a chilly edge, reminding me of the restrained breaths in his throat from the previous night, a mix of restraint and sensuality. What do you want me to do for you? He asked straightforwardly. I didn't beat around the bush and laid out the false accusations against my dad. Although the incident happened in a small town, the case was quite complex. For someone to frame a worker, there must be some powerful manipulation behind it. They even cut off my channels. Clearing my dad's name wasn't going to be easy. After I finished recounting everything, I waited for Samuel's response. I expected him to give it some thought, but to my surprise, he agreed immediately. Okay, leave it to me. I was stunned. You're agreeing just like that? Any problem? This case is tricky. I've approached many people before, and they all declined. Samuel smirked. They couldn't handle it. I will handle it for you. Usually, I wouldn't like this kind of arrogant tone, but the arrogant one was Samuel. Concern turned into peace of mind. Samuel had work to attend to. I went to the study to grab a book. When I entered, I was shocked by the scattered sketches all over the place. Each sketch featured the same woman, who bore a striking resemblance to me, especially the one on the desk, colored and framed, strategically placed where a slight bow would reveal it. Undoubtedly, she was Samuel's crush. "What are you looking at?" Samuel came to see. Upon seeing the room full of sketches, he fell silent for a moment. "If you don't like them, I can have them all removed." "No need." I hurried to deny. "I actually think the drawings are quite good." "Did you draw them all yourself?" "Impressive," I sincerely praised. "If you weren't inheriting your family business, you could still become an artist." Samuel stared at me for a moment, realizing my genuine admiration. He showed no hint of jealousy or anger. At that moment, his assistant brought coffee up, looking hesitant to speak. Samuel asked, "Is something wrong?" Henry has been waiting downstairs all night. He seems to think Emily won't stay here for long. So he waited last night to take her away. But Emily never came down all day. And now, he tried to come up several times, but was stopped by the bodyguards. I glanced at my phone. Sure enough, there were over a dozen missed calls and messages. The earliest one was from last night, shortly after I had arrived upstairs. Henry said, "Emily, I've been thinking and I've changed my mind. Just come down and I'll take you away." Not receiving my reply, he grew increasingly anxious. "Emily, please pick up the phone." "Are you angry?" "It's my fault for not thinking clearly before bringing you here." "Have you seen Samuel? Is he in a bad mood?" "Don't worry, I'll come up to protect you." The assistant even brought up the surveillance video downstairs. Henry paced anxiously at the door, no longer as calm as before. The assistant asked, "What should we do now, boss?" Samuel didn't answer, his dark eyes looking at me, seemingly observing my reaction. I remained calm and said, "I almost forgot. I have a request. Please do not hand the project back to him." Samuel seemed slightly surprised. "I thought you would plead with me for him." "I never intended to do so." He smirked in satisfaction. "Glad you didn't." I stayed by Samuel's side for a month. After getting acquainted with the assistants, I learned that Samuel hadn't lied to me. There had never been a woman by his side. His private life was clean, contrary to rumors. Even the woman in the painting, the assistants had never seen in person. They said, "The boss is ambitious, not driven by desire." I couldn't help but wonder, always working, tireless, like a perpetual motion machine. Isn't that desire-driven? Of course, I wouldn't say that out loud. Samuel was genuinely concerned about my well-being. Sometimes waking up in the middle of the night, I would find him still awake, leaning under the reading light, looking at my father's case records. He even assembled a top-notch legal team to support my father. Henry tried to contact me countless times, but I had blocked all his communication channels. At the end of June, there was a charity banquet. Samuel wanted to take me with him. Before leaving, I had no idea all the people I disliked would be there today. Meanwhile, inside the banquet venue, Helen looked angrily at the indifferent Henry. She thought that by sending me away, she could be together with Henry. Little did she know, Henry seemed lost and kept staring at his phone, saying, "She's really angry now." In that moment, Henry stared at the blocked contact information, dumbfounded. On the screen were messages he had just sent but were rejected. "Emily, I know I was wrong, please forgive me." Helen couldn't take it anymore and dragged him to a secluded spot, yelling at him, "What are you waiting for? Emily has been silent for a month. She might have gone crazy from Samuel's torment." "Henry, wake up." Henry said, "No, she will definitely come back to me. If she returns, then what about me? What are we during this time? You're the granddaughter of the chairman. Taking care of you is my job." Helen didn't believe him. "Do you dare say you don't like me?" After this incident, I realized I couldn't let go of Emily. Impossible. "Are you kidding me? Henry, you've been so good to me, it can't be just for work." "And the promotion, the raise," Henry said numbly. "I don't like you, but for the benefit, I endured it all." Helen was furious, her face turning pale. "Despicable. I despise you. You finally tell the truth." Henry coldly exposed, "Actually, deep down, you never respected someone like me." Helen was provoked and spoke harshly. "You and Emily are a perfect match. Unfortunately, she's already been ruined by Samuel." Henry slapped her, cutting off her words. The air fell silent. After some time, Helen regained her composure. "How dare you hit me? Henry, you're fired from now on. I'll make sure you never find a job again." Henry responded indifferently. "I have evidence of your violations in my hands. You can try." No wonder he was acting out of character today, because he held the company's Achilles heel. A clever man like Henry had long prepared for this. If they dared to silence him, backup data would leak. No one knew where he had backed up the data, or what kind of sharing program was set up. Helen glared at him, full of hatred. At that moment, Samuel arrived. Seeing Samuel, Helen lost her temper even more, and she cursed more fiercely. "Emily is useless, a waste, can't even win back a partnership." But before she finished speaking, she suddenly widened her eyes. Walking next to Samuel was Emily, the one she thought had completely failed. I hooked my arm with Samuel's and entered the event gracefully. All conversation ceased. Everyone looked over at us. The gown Samuel had chosen for me fit perfectly. During this month, he had pampered me with various supplements, almost making me have a nosebleed from so many. Thankfully, he had brought my dry hair back to life. I had gained weight, looking healthier. In a corner, there were two familiar gazes, Henry and Helen, who I hadn't seen in a long time. Our eyes met briefly, and I quickly averted mine. I didn't know, at that moment, Henry's heart seemed to be gripped by someone I didn't know. This white dress made him think of the 17-year-old me, waiting at the station gate in a white dress, just to welcome him back home during holidays. In one of the gaps while Samuel was networking with other bosses, a man approached. The Emily who can't drink. I recognized him. He was one of the culprits who forced me to go to the hospital for gastric lavage. Forced drinking wasn't terrible. What was terrible was not owning up to it afterward. To be like, I didn't agree to help you. It's your inability to handle it attitude. I naturally didn't show him a good face. When the man saw me being cold, his self-esteem was hurt. Who are you trying to show off to? Feeling superior for getting involved with Samuel. What a joke. He called a group of friends. Coincidentally, they were all there that day. Come and see, she's warming Samuel's bed, thinking she's going to be a princess. The sleazy men started joking around. Is Samuel satisfying you? If not, come find us. Emily, drink up. Let your big brother see you pass out from drinking. I had my palm ready, just about to slap each one of them. The leader of the men suddenly yelled in pain. He was kicked from behind, falling straight to the ground. Who? He was about to curse, but when he turned around, he saw Samuel's bodyguard and immediately fell silent. Is Emily a name you can call out? Samuel appeared behind me like a ghost. He looked down at the man on the ground and stepped on his hand. His shoe viciously crushed the man's fingertips. The man screamed in pain. Everyone around just watched silently. No one dared to intervene when Samuel was angry. Listen up, Emily is not a bedmate. Samuel coldly and deliberately said, word by word. She's my girlfriend. I looked at Samuel in astonishment. Am I his girlfriend? How come I didn't know? Oh well, whatever he said is what it is. Samuel's anger still wasn't gone. He personally poured a full glass of alcohol. Like drinking, today I'll make sure you drink your fill. The bodyguard forced open the man's mouth, and Samuel rudely poured the alcohol in. The man choked, his face and neck turning red. If you don't drink, you're not giving me, Samuel, face. Don't look at me like that. When you poured alcohol for my girlfriend, you must have said the same things. I'm just returning the favor to you. Samuel waved his hand, and several large wine glasses were brought over. Make sure these gentlemen drink well. Make sure they drink enough. The bodyguard understood his meaning and escorted several people out of the venue. Later on, cries for mercy occasionally came from the lounge. Samuel turned a deaf ear. He squeezed my hand. Did you want to retaliate just now? Yes. Next time, leave this kind of thing to me. Don't hurt yourself for it. Samuel, am I your girlfriend? Of course. Why would you even have that doubt? I stared blankly at him. Samuel realized, Emily, you never considered me your boyfriend. A girlfriend is a girlfriend, but what if your true love comes back? An excellent stand-in will handle all risks for the boss. When the time comes, I'll just disappear on my own. Samuel put his arm around my waist, introducing me to the distinguished guests. Glasses clinked. Henry passed by me. Get away from Samuel quickly, he's killed before, he said to me in a tone only I could hear. After the dinner ended, those who loved to drink were all sent to the hospital. Samuel still had some discussions with a few bosses. I was waiting for the driver to pick me up. Suddenly, someone appeared from behind, covered my mouth, and dragged me into a room. This lounge had been turned into a warehouse. Lots of miscellaneous items, dim lighting. Henry, what are you doing? I questioned him. If not like this, would you agree to see me? Henry placed me on a chair and knelt halfway beside my legs. His gaze was somewhat fervent. Emily, there's been progress on your dad's case. I found the person responsible before the accident on the project. Following this lead will surely uncover the company behind it. I calmly stated, I've already found out. It was a fake company that dissolved after my dad's accident. He looked puzzled. How did you know? Samuel found out. That's it, I'll be going. As I was getting up, Henry held me back. If you stay by his side, is it because he can help you get justice? It's better than someone who talks, but does nothing. I mocked. Emily, I'm also looking into it. Break up with him and come back to me, okay? Don't even think about it. Are you still mad at me? His eyes were bloodshot. Helen and I have nothing. If it wasn't for her suggesting to send you away, I wouldn't have made such a big mistake. I've regretted it a lot during this time. losing sleep every day, closing my eyes only to see you. Henry, have you forgotten? I interrupted him impatiently. You are the one who personally brought me to Samuel. You can't deny that. Henry shuddered. The fact he feared facing most was brought to light by a single sentence from me. He almost completely knelt on the ground, pleading with me. I was wrong. I was wrong. I'll make it up. You can tell me to do anything, Emily. Don't leave me. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. Don't contact me again in the future. Samuel will get angry. From childhood friends to now, this is all so sad. I adjusted my dress and prepared to leave. But at this moment, neither of us knew. Samuel had finished his business and was actively looking for me. He was standing outside the room, able to hear the conversation inside clearly. Emily, aren't you curious about the blood on Samuel's hands? Upon hearing this, Samuel froze. When I was about to leave, Henry once again stopped me and mentioned the matter of Samuel killing someone. Just 1 month ago, around the time you just met him, he forced a poor man to jump off a building. Henry had a sinister look. The man had his beloved family, then suddenly lost the head of the household. How pitiful. I said, don't spread rumors without evidence. The word on the street is that the man used to work under Samuel. After being kicked out by Samuel, he jumped off a building within 3 days. I suddenly remembered that night when I first met Samuel, the middle-aged man who was thrown out. My gut told me it was him. He committed suicide. Why blame it on Samuel? Because Samuel pushed him to a dead end, maybe even pushed him to jump off the building. If that's the case, the justice system will intervene. Henry chuckled. Emily, you're still too naive. People like Samuel, the law can't touch them. Just like your father's case. Mixed emotions. Saying I'm not shaken is fake. But I seriously recall our interactions over the past month. Samuel is the person who, after finishing work, would personally read through the records of my father's case. He is the person who, after I got tired of hotel food delivery, rolled up his sleeves and personally cooked for me. He is also someone who silently did a lot of charity work. Rather than rumors, I prefer to believe my own eyes. I looked at Henry, solemnly stating, I trust Samuel, he's not that kind of person. On the way back to the hotel, Samuel dismissed the driver and personally drove. He was silent the whole way. I've gotten used to it. He's always a man of few words, so I didn't sense anything wrong. In the hotel basement, he bought a spot, using it as a private garage. After parking the car, he didn't immediately unlock the door. Samuel, aren't you getting out? I asked. He didn't answer, just held me and pulled me onto the driver's seat. Facing away from the steering wheel, I straddled him. Samuel held the back of my head, kissing me urgently and aggressively. His emotions surged, as if he wanted to give himself completely to me. The formal dress fell off, his pants stained with watermarks. In the intimate and confined space, we intertwined closely. Samuel was fierce and urgent. With his rhythm, my lower back pressed against the steering wheel, until Samuel fully released. Breathing heavily, rationality gradually returned. I caressed his face and asked, do you have something on your mind? He fell silent for a moment, then spoke heavily. My subordinate did indeed jump off a building. I didn't expect him to say that. Perhaps he overheard my conversation with Henry. I listened patiently. I didn't pressure him, nor did I instigate. He was dismissed because he crossed my bottom line. He joked about my secrets while drunk, and I caught him. I didn't ask about the secret. A qualified substitute wouldn't be so loose-lipped. But Samuel touched his right ear and said voluntarily, Emily, actually, I'm partially deaf. I widened my eyes in astonishment. His right ear, no different from the other, was actually deaf. He had a high fever as a child, no one noticed, and his right ear got damaged. It's not a fond memory. Samuel cast his dark eyes down. That subordinate who jumped off the building had poor drinking habits, joked about my ears while drunk, said unpleasant things. That's why I dismissed him. You did nothing wrong. It was a matter of principle. He deserved to be dismissed, but I didn't know he owed a lot of money outside. By dismissing him, cutting off his source of income, with several people to support at home, he couldn't handle that pressure. So he jumped off the building. I asked, this has nothing to do with you, why take the blame? His family didn't want to disclose the real reason for his suicide, fearing damage to his reputation. So, I bore that stigma. Not surprising at all. This is the Samuel I know. Ruthless in tactics, ferocious in character. But when it comes to right and wrong, he has principles and boundaries. Let me guess, did you end up paying off his debts too? Samuel was first surprised, then said calmly, you know me too well. After his death, his creditors went after his family, who were widowed and orphaned. So I decided to pay off their debts. I knew it. Emily, I'm telling you all this mainly to thank you. Thank me for what? Thank you for trusting me, Samuel said. The formal dress was already torn. He held me, taking a separate elevator to the top floor. After entering the room, I hugged him proactively. Like just now, shall we do it again? Samuel's eyes flickered. Can we? I didn't answer, just held onto his waist, saying, Samuel, love me fiercely. In the past, he always took the lead, and I would just ask him to finish quickly. Today, let me take the initiative, from the bedroom to the living room. In the end, I was so weak that I couldn't even walk properly. He carried me to the bathtub to wash up. I said, by the way, I was originally studying medicine, and did an internship in otolaryngology. But then I took a break after my dad's accident. I know, he said. How did he know? Perhaps he had investigated my background. I didn't dwell on it, but sat back on him. Samuel was surprised. Emily, are you this good today? This will be the last time. I took control. Samuel was pushed beyond reason by my teasing, but ultimately, it was exhaustion. I got tired first, and soon got up to leave. Samuel held me, breathing heavily, and said, you can't just leave me, a half-disabled man, here like this. Seeing Samuel look somewhat aggrieved for the first time was truly novel. My heart softened, and I stayed. Soon after, Samuel used brute force to make me understand that, even if he wore a rabbit mask, he was still an insatiable beast. There was progress in my father's case. The investigation results were unexpected. The mastermind unearthed by Samuel turned out to be someone from Helen's company. Samuel nodded. He is Helen's distant cousin. No wonder no one was willing to help, because behind it was Helen's company. No wonder Helen was against me in every way. She had known everything for a long time. I didn't dare to think deeply. Does Henry know? Or has Helen been keeping it from him all along? Emily, don't get angry just yet, Samuel said calmly. Helen doesn't have the brains for that. She rarely interacts with that cousin. Their focus is still on their family business. What should I do? You don't need to do anything. Next is a game of capital. Leave it all to me. I'll take care of them for you. But I also want to do my best to repay Samuel. Recently, I have resumed my studies. Hopefully, one day, I can cure Samuel's ears. Emily, there is actually one more thing. Samuel paused, a rare moment of hesitation for him. After much thought, I've decided to tell you. Henry is sick. It's not a minor illness. About half a month ago, he was diagnosed with early-stage cancer. It struck him like a bolt from the blue, instantly crushing him. Although it doesn't require chemotherapy at this stage, it's like a time bomb, uncertain if it will spread or recur in the future. Nevertheless, he wanted to see me. Unable to reach me, he had to find Samuel. The day I went to the hospital, I ran into Henry's parents at the ward entrance. The atmosphere was tense. Emily, you finally came. Henry has been asking for you, his father said. How is he? The surgery was quite successful, said his parents. I had nothing more to say. When my father had his accident, my mother had gone to them for help, but they were afraid of getting involved and avoided seeing my mother. My mother was heartbroken for a long time, saying, even a few words of comfort would have sufficed. I didn't have to ask for their help. Later, when my mother passed away, they didn't even show up for the funeral. Two families who used to be so close, now ending up like this. Uncle spoke awkwardly. Emily, about your father's situation, it's not that we didn't want to help, it's that we couldn't help. I understand, I said softly. Everyone has their reasons, no need to force it. The more understanding I was, the more guilt they felt, but I didn't want to hear their apologies and justifications. So I went straight into the ward. Compared to the last time we met, Henry looked much worse. Emily, he exclaimed excitedly, sitting up. You're really here. After over 20 years of friendship, out of politeness, I should also come to see you. I spoke indifferently, distancing myself. Henry couldn't help but feel disappointed. You still haven't forgiven me. It's not about forgiveness. I just understand you. You have your own choices. You chose your prospects. You chose your interests. I have no right to interfere. Just like his parents, seeking profit and avoiding harm, it's human nature. I don't blame any of them. Henry looked pained. I used to be so driven by greed, wanting a lot of money, wanting to reach high positions. I'm sorry. I've put things in the wrong order. I've never wanted a big house and a lavish wedding. I looked at him with sympathy. I used to only want you. Henry trembled. And now, I don't want you anymore. I let you go since the day you sent me away. Can we try again? Rekindle our feelings? We can't. I have someone I like now. Who? Samuel. I didn't answer, almost confirming it. He just sees you as a substitute. What will you do when the person he truly likes comes back? Henry's emotions rose, causing him to start coughing. Rest well, Henry. I'm leaving. Don't go, Spend more time with me, please. Let me look at you again. I firmly put down the fruit basket and left. However, Henry's words lingered in my mind. Lately, I've been contemplating, what if Samuel's true love comes back? Then let them come back. The drama of a love triangle between a true love and a substitute won't happen with me. Samuel has done enough for me. I don't ask for anything more. Returning to the hotel, I went to the study to change a book, and suddenly noticed dust on a picture frame. It was of someone Samuel held dear. I grabbed a clean towel and carefully wiped the dust off the frame, but as I did, the backboard of the frame fell off. As I reattached it, I discovered a signature on the back of the canvas. Emily. Hold on, Emily, this is my name. Confused, I stared at the letters. Samuel had just finished bathing and came in to find me. Emily, what are you staring at? Samuel, is this picture of me? It's you. Wait, are you not going to explain? I was waiting for you to remember before I said. He had a towel wrapped around his waist, his short, damp hair still wet. I know you interned in the ENT department, because you showed me a medical issue once. Wait a minute, I studied and interned in another city. I've never been here. How did I show you a medical issue? I wanted to move to this city with Henry back then, but the medical school I dreamt of was in another place. Between love and academics, I chose academics. Samuel confirmed my story. Your mentor is a well-known ENT expert in the country, and there were 3 other interns with you. All true, but I interned for only a month before my dad had his accident. I said, your teacher is very renowned in the field. It's reasonable for you to go to him for treatment. Not really, Samuel chuckled. I went there to get back at someone. Who? The nanny who made me deaf in one ear. Wasn't his ear damaged due to a fever and complications? Confused, Samuel told me a story. When he was a child, a young nanny came to the house. She was actually Samuel's father's mistress. By staying as a nanny, she could openly have an affair under everyone's noses. During that time, Samuel's family was all busy with work and not paying much attention to him. To secure her illegitimate child's future, the nanny intentionally kept his illness hidden. It was only after Samuel had a high fever seizure that the adults found out he was sick. His right ear was destroyed, and his hearing in the left ear was reduced significantly. But his father couldn't bear to punish his mistress. He only fired her. He even considered bringing the illegitimate child home to replace Samuel, because of his half-disability. Samuel grew up in the shadow of possibly going completely deaf at any time. The hatred in his heart grew into a towering tree. After joining the family business, he disregarded family ties, and was the first to kick his father out. The reputation of his cruel and indifferent nature was spread from that time. But it wasn't enough. Why should the person who ruined his hearing be able to live so carefree with his family's money? Samuel couldn't understand. He went to that city alone, wanting to also damage the nanny's ears. However, before doing so, he visited the hospital where I was interning, hearing that there was a top ENT expert in the country there. Previously, Samuel had a negative mindset and never actively participated in treatment. But that day, he had a thought. What if he could be cured? As long as he could be cured, he would spare the nanny. That professor told him that his right ear could never be cured. That day, he walked out of the clinic in silence. His mind was filled with thoughts of how to make that person deaf, too. Just then, an intern stopped him. Wait, sir. Samuel turned around and met this intern for the first time. I asked a question. If a high fever and otitis media cause hearing loss in the right ear, the left ear won't be too good either. Indeed, his hearing in the left ear is much worse than normal. Although the right ear may be untreatable, perhaps we can try the left ear. Medical advances have come a long way in the past decade, and there may be hope for the left ear to recover. No need, let it be like this. Samuel refused indifferently. Most doctors would not insist further after such persuasion, but as an intern, my passion still burned. Just give it a try. Fix the left ear first. Maybe in a few more years, with further medical advances, we can treat the right ear too. How is that possible? Samuel scoffed. Do you take me for a 3-year-old? But I was not angry. Instead, I looked up and said seriously, if you give up, what did I study medicine so hard for? This question hit him hard. Samuel was speechless for a moment. When he finally reacted, he unconsciously followed me back to the clinic. I examined his left ear and inquired about his medical history. My touch was gentle, like a light breeze brushing past his ear. It was itchy, quite warm. It stirred restlessness in him. He had never liked anyone before. Most of his life, he was consumed by the aftermath of his acquired disability. This was the first time he felt the ache in his heart. An inexplicable emotion was on the verge of emerging. Samuel decided to stay in the hospital for treatment, although half of it was for a girl named Emily. Because of me, he avoided committing a crime. However, at this point, I already knew the rest of the story. Unfortunately, he disappeared shortly after being admitted to the hospital. I received devastating news from my father the same day, and had to apply for a leave of absence from school to return to my hometown. With family matters pressing, I quickly put this patient, Samuel, out of my mind. So when we met again, I didn't recognize him. The teacher cured Samuel's left ear. After he returned home, he immediately drew a portrait of me. Occasionally, when visitors came and saw those drawings, they all said that it was Samuel's lover. I have a few more questions. Go ahead. You know my name. Just ask the teacher and you can find me. You think I didn't look for you? Samuel hugged me onto the table, saying helplessly, I not only found you, but also learned about your relationship with Henry. I thought, why not just snatch you away? My reputation isn't that great anyway, and it wouldn't hurt to steal a woman. I chuckled. Why didn't you then? I was about to make a plan, and you came to me first. I thought, finally, heaven was on my side. I asked again, why didn't you tell me all this earlier? 1. I was afraid you stayed with me to help Henry. 2. I was afraid you would think I am a pervert. He looked around at the sketches in the room. Were you not scared by these drawings? Indeed, if I had known from the beginning that they were all drawings of me, I might have been scared. My feelings for Samuel grew overnight. Now, looking at these drawings again, I can treat them with a calm mind. Samuel's hair was almost dry. The faint scent of shower gel still lingered on his skin. I buried my face in the crook of his neck, sniffing it again and again. Suddenly, I remembered that night when he risked it all. Samuel frowned, asking, what do you think? You unzipped my pants and kissed me all over as soon as you saw me. Emily, I had been longing for you, and you acted like that as soon as we met. Could I have borne it? From his perspective, not devouring me immediately was already showing great restraint. Any more questions? I'm all ears. What about the illegitimate child? Dead, drowned in middle school. I fell silent. Perhaps it was his mother's retribution. I had no more questions. Samuel lowered his head, his forehead touching mine. I'm sorry, Emily. I wish I had known about your father sooner. You've already helped me a lot. I've never been loved by my father. He sighed. I envy you. So I want to preserve this bond for you. I felt moved and kissed him first. All the love and words were drowned in the kisses. With emotions heating up, it was time to do something joyful. Samuel whispered, let's do it right here. Okay. He leaned his arms on the table, his veins bulging, exuding a sense of power. He wasn't wearing a shirt. His Adam's apple and muscles were stimulating my senses. As we passionately kissed, the towel fell to the ground. The tension was building up below the mermaid line. Samuel kissed down my collarbone. He was like a desert wanderer thirsting for so long, searching for a water source on me. In the study, only ambiguous sounds of sucking remained. I felt like we would never be apart in this lifetime. With Samuel's involvement, my father's case attracted attention from above. A task force was formed by the relevant department to investigate the case. Helen's cousin, along with several officials he bribed. Arrests were made and warrants issued. Henry was also involved in stirring up trouble. Due to health issues, he resigned from his job. Through his hand, a series of Helen's misconducts were exposed to the public. Overnight, Helen's family almost collapsed, but I didn't expect them to throw Helen under the bus. Helen, pampered and used to luxury, thought she was a true princess, but when the family faced trouble, she was the first to be abandoned. It was because of her close relationship with Henry in the past. Moreover, she had indeed been involved in some misconduct. It was said that Helen, in prison, learned that her family was planning to leave her and flee the country. She completely broke down. She also revealed a lot of evidence. In the end, Helen's family members did not escape either. Ultimately, this whole family would be reunited behind bars. During this period, Samuel was not idle. He took over Helen's original projects, further expanding his business. Henry faded out of our world. I don't know what happened to his illness later on, or if it recurred. Those were no longer my concern. The day my father was released from prison, Samuel went with me to pick him up. It was a spring day. Everything was blooming. Even the prison was dyed in full greenery. I held Samuel's hand and watched as the iron gate slowly opened. My dad touched his almost bald head, smiling as he walked out. The iron gate slowly closed behind him. It was as if it was telling me that the long years of suffering and running around had come to an end at this moment. From then on, I had a home again.